Before banks, before stocks, before the word millionaire even existed, wealth was counted by the sails on the horizon. Every white triangle at sea meant power, risk, and gold. From the stormy Mediterranean to the endless Indian Ocean, ships carried not just goods, they carried the fate of kingdoms. In those days, the sea was the road of power. If you ruled the water, you ruled the world. And somewhere across those waves, people whispered about a port so rich that gold was said to flow through its streets like water. Imagine the noise of a medieval harbor. Shouts in Arabic, Latin, Persian, and Chinese. Ropes snapping. Spices burning the air with their scent. Every crate of silk, every barrel of pepper, was a heartbeat in the body of the first global economy. Ports weren't just markets, they were living empires. And one wrong deal could end a dynasty. Venice understood that better than anyone. It rose from the swamp like a miracle, a city built not on land, but on pure ambition. By the 13th century, its merchants controlled the veins of the world's trade. They didn't just sell goods. They sold systems, insurance, contracts, double-entry accounting, ideas that would one day define capitalism, all born here under the flicker of candlelight in narrow stone rooms. Every ship that entered Venice paid tribute. Every merchant was logged in ledgers treated like sacred scripture. Fortunes were made overnight. Ruin came just as fast. The Doge's palace glittered with gold mosaics from every shore, proof that Venice didn't pray to gods, prayed to profit. While Europe dreamed of crusades, Venice built an empire of credit. It didn't conquer by sword, but by signature. But far to the south, under a hotter sun, another empire of wealth was growing. One that connected the deserts of Arabia to the blue heart of the Mediterranean. Cairo and Alexandria, twin gates of gold. Here, faith met finance. Ships from India and Africa arrived heavy with pepper, pearls, ivory, and silk. The Red Sea poured its treasures straight into Egypt, and from there into Venetian hands. Cairo wasn't just a city. It was the world's first financial engine. Muslim, Jewish, and Coptic traders created early credit systems, promissory notes, letters of exchange, bills of trade. Gold no longer needed to clink in a bag, could travel as ink on parchment. In the shadow of its great mosques, mathematics became religion. Money was faith, invisible but absolute. And then there was Alexandria. Sailors called it the treasure house of Africa. The air smelled of cinnamon and salt. Seagulls screamed over docks stacked with silver, glass, and silk. Three worlds met here. The Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean, and the Sahara, and their wealth collided like tides. It was said that if you stood on its piers at dusk, the sun itself seemed to sink into gold. By the 14th century, something new was clear. Swords no longer built empires. Trade did. The future belonged to those who could turn distance into profit and trust into currency. Far beyond the sands of Arabia, where the Red Sea meets the Indian Ocean, there lay a harbor people called the throat of trade. Its name was Aden, a place where two worlds collided and every wind smelled of wealth. Merchants from India, Persia, and East Africa crowded its narrow bay. Their ships groaned with gold, ivory, and silk. The air burned with incense and myrrh. Every crate unloaded was taxed with ruthless precision. Every deal watched by guards in white stone towers. In Aden, profit was law. The traveler Ibn Battuta once wrote, "Here, you can buy anything the human race has ever known." He wasn't exaggerating. This was the beating heart of Islamic maritime trade, a crossroads of oceans, faiths, and empires. But even Aden's glory would pale against what waited in the Far East. Across 10,000 miles of sea, past deserts, storms, and islands of coral, another port was rising. One that would change the very meaning of wealth. Its name was Guangzhou, known to foreign sailors as Canton. It was not just a harbor. It was a floating world. Ships larger than cathedrals lined its docks, sails like mountains of white linen. Over 80 nations kept resident merchants there. Arabs, Persians, Indians, Malays. The air was thick with the smell of tea and the clang of bronze coins. Here, trade wasn't chaos, it was science. The Song dynasty had built the world's most advanced customs office. Every shipment was inspected, every tax recorded with mathematical precision. Porcelain, silk, gold, and paper money flowed through warehouses guarded by imperial decree. While Europe still paid with silver, China traded with ink and trust. It was the birth of modern commerce and the richest port on earth. But Guangzhou wasn't alone in its brilliance. Across the ocean winds, Calicut, the city of spices, glowed like a jewel on India's coast. Here ruled the Zamarin, a king who welcomed traders of every faith. Muslims, Jews, Chinese, and Christians all found safety under his flag. The scent of pepper and cinnamon filled the streets so thickly travelers claimed they could taste it before seeing the city. Arab fleets came for pepper. Chinese fleets came for silk. Every handshake here was worth a kingdom. Calicut proved that in the medieval world, the most powerful weapon wasn't steel, it was flavor. Far to the west, along the shimmering shores of East Africa, two more cities rose from coral and sand, Kilwa and Sofala. They were mirrors of Venice and Calicut, but their treasure was pure earth, gold. Caravans crossed from the interior kingdoms of Zimbabwe and Congo, their donkeys heavy with shining dust. From there, the Swahili merchants sent it north on dhows bound for Arabia and India. Their mosques were carved from coral. Their palaces glittered with glass beads and ivory. Even Ibn Battuta, who had seen half the world, wrote, "There is no city on the coast of Africa wealthier or more beautiful than Kilwa." And Sofala, further south, was the golden mouth of this trade. The port that fed the world's hunger for gold and fed Venice's bankers across an ocean. Yet the greatest crossroads of all stood between Europe and Asia, Constantinople. Guarding the Bosporus like a jeweled gate, it controlled the only passage between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Every ship from the cold rivers of the north to the warm markets of the south had to pass beneath its towering walls. Merchants paid in silver, silk, or gold just to anchor in its harbors. Its markets were a storm of voices, Greek, Latin, Arabic, echoing beneath domes of glittering mosaics. The Byzantines taxed every vessel, and those taxes built armies, palaces, and cathedrals that made foreigners call it the eye of the world. In Constantinople, trade became empire. But when we look across all these ports, Venice, Cairo, Calicut, Kilwa, Constantinople, one stands apart. Guangzhou. It wasn't only the richest, it was the most advanced. While others traded goods, Guangzhou traded trust. Paper money replaced gold. Contracts replaced swords. The Maritime Trade Bureau acted like a modern government agency, registering ships, inspecting goods, and ensuring fairness. Even corruption was kept in check by law, a miracle for the medieval world. Its profits rivaled the incomes of entire European empires. Foreign envoys wrote, "Here, gold is weighed by the boatload." Every tide brought profit. Every ledger told the story of an empire ruled not by kings, but by commerce. And so, the sea became humanity's first network, a vast tapestry of sales and trust stretching from Africa to China. Each wave carried more than cargo. It carried ideas. The medieval ocean taught kingdoms something they had forgotten: cooperation before conquest. The true measure of wealth was not the gold in your vault, but the connections you could build across the horizon. Guangzhou still stands as proof of that truth, that the world becomes richer not by conquering, but by trading.